depart and do a reentry, and then a landing, and then a recovery. So plenty of work to do, and we'll probably think a lot more about that when the time comes.
Hanukkah Whitering with Space.com.
Hey guys, Hanukkah Whitering here. Thanks for taking my question. This is for Bob and Doug. I'm wondering, what were some of the first things that you wanted to see or do after you arrived at the space station? And has it changed much since you were last there, or does it still kind of feel like a second home to you? Thanks.
Well, I don't want to speak for Doug on this one, but one of the things I was most excited about was being able to make a phone call home. It's been a long time since I launched into orbit, and I've got a little boy who got a chance to watch me do that for the first time in his life, and I just wanted to understand what his experience was and share that a little bit with him while it was still fresh in his mind. He was able to make the trip back to Houston after watching the docking from down in Florida, and was pretty excited about the whole thing. So that was wonderful for me. As far as the space station goes, I'll tell you, it seems a lot like it did when I was here last. There is quite a bit more science going on, quite a bit more equipment on some of the rack faces, especially over on the gym side or down in Node 3. But the overall structure and layout is very similar. We did comment yesterday about the airlock configuration. It's not as clean as how Chris and I remember it from our shuttle experiences, because those flights were really about the assembly of space station, and the airlock was ready to go. And we're in a different mode of operation on board space station right now. So I know the way space station works is you pretty much have to configure each specific area for the task at hand. And so the mating adapter that we docked to on the forward part of the space station was all cleared out for our arrival. All that stowage was moved around. Quite a bit of stowage was probably repositioned for HTV's arrival from Japan, and we'll have to do some reconfiguration in other areas as we continue to conduct operations on board the space station. There's just so much going on that you've got more stuff than you have places to just stow it without fully being able to conduct the operation. Anything to add there?
Let's go across the pond to Jackie Goddard with the Times.
Thank you. Hi, Jackie Goddard for the Times of London, and congratulations. This mission feels so much more funky and futuristic, with everything from the capsule's look to the touch screens, the technology, the suits. Does this feel like the Jetsons? Can you describe some of the emotion around it, of the ride uphill? And somebody has to ask it, that all-important question that the child in all of us needs to know: how was the Crew Dragon toilet? Thank you.
Well, it's good to talk to you. Let me think. From a futuristic standpoint, I think, SpaceX, from the very start of that company, has tried to be very forward-thinking and cutting edge, and it is one of the factors that went into the design of the Crew Dragon and our spacesuits and everything about the vehicle. And, for us as the test pilots, so to speak, we're there to evaluate how it does the mission, and so far it's done just absolutely spectacularly. It's a very clean vehicle. I think most people think it's a really cool-looking vehicle. I know my son thinks so, and it does everything we need it to do for this mission. So we're very happy with that part of it. Let's see, the toilet. I think we had a bet to see when that question was going to be asked about Dragon, and it works very similar to the one we were used to in the space shuttle, and it worked very well. We had no issues with it.
All right, next is Peter King.
Good morning, Peter King with CBS News Radio, and I know, Bob and Doug, that you were up there to help Chris overcome that shorthanded situation, but it also gives the SpaceX people a chance to evaluate the Dragon's long-term performance during its exposure to the elements while you're up there. What are some of the things they're going to be looking for?
Well, you're absolutely right that we'll put the Dragon through its paces in preparation for the Crew 1 flight. We already spent quite a bit of the day preparing basically Dragon to serve its purpose as a lifeboat or an emergency departure vehicle. So Doug and I spent quite a bit of time getting the equipment prepared so that that vehicle is ready to go and execute that mission. And we probably did a little more as a part of that than other crews will do in the future. We've performed some connections with the computer systems to make sure that we can configure the communication between everything from the Soyuz to the rest of the space station back to Dragon if we needed to do that from inside of our small little vehicle, and we established that that stuff all works. And we'll continue to do small checkouts like that. We'll go through the process of powering down Dragon, taking it to its kind of hibernated state, and then bring it back up here in just a few short days just to make sure that that process goes smoothly. Again, every crew won't need to do that sort of an evaluation, but since it's the first flight, we really are putting her through her paces to make sure that any of the little aspects of the mission that it might be called upon to support, it's ready to do that. And so that's from the hibernated state, that's from a regular departure, or to, serve as another environment for us to go and safe haven in should we need to if there was a problem on board space station. And we'll do all those things before we call her operational, and then really pick up with a primary task focused on helping Chris out on the space station side.
Leo Enright with Irish Television.
Congratulations, Bob and Doug, and as we say in Ireland, slán a bhaile, safe home. I have another question about launch and about something that was different this time. Your final call-out before SECO was Shannon, to which Hawthorne replied, Roger, Shannon. Now, obviously, Shannon is in Ireland, and I rather expect that we're going to be hearing this call-out a lot in the years to come. So a lot of people in Ireland are wondering, what was that all about?
Well, hello, Ireland. That's a great question. So the ascent trajectory offers us some opportunities if needed, if we have got a failure with the launch vehicle, to abort. And some of those scenarios involve aborting fairly close to Kennedy Space Center, along the east coast of the United States, all the way up towards Newfoundland, even into Canada. And then once our trajectory hits a certain point and we get high enough, we are going to abort forward to the UK and the Ireland area specifically, and we can do that in the later stages of our powered flight before the engine shut down. So that's our call to Mission Control and Hawthorne to let them know that we see that change in the abort destination if that eventuality is needed.
Sophie Sanchez, Chicago Now.
Hola from Chicago. Doug, as a test pilot, what was it like for you taking control of Endeavour for the first time? And then if you can both share a little bit about the docking procedure, how it compared to the Soyuz docking procedure. Thank you.
Flying the Dragon was exactly how we expected it to be, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to do the manual flight test twice. So we did it shortly after we got to orbit on our first day, and then when we were on the final portion of the docking axis, we did it again yesterday. And it's all to prove that that capability works for future crews if need be. Most folks are familiar with the fact that Dragon is designed to be totally automated from the time it launches until the time it returns to Earth. But if there's any systems failures or other issues, we would like to know with confidence that if we take over manually, the vehicle will do what we need it to do.
Dave Mosier.
Thank you so much for taking my call, and congratulations on your flight. It was amazing to watch. Chris, what was the biggest thing you felt or thought as Endeavour approached the ISS? And Bob and Doug, same question for you. What were your biggest thoughts or emotions as you pulled up to this place you haven't been in many years? And I'm also curious, I want to ask the spacesuit question a different way. What's your 5-star review? Well, what would you rate it? What would you say about the spacesuits and your if you had to review them online? Thank you.
I'll take the first part of that question from the space station side of things. What was going through my mind while they were, well, there's sort of several phases. One was during launch, and that was quite exciting for the three of us on board. We flew directly over the Kennedy Space Center 2 minutes before launch, got some nice pictures of the launch pad. We were out over the ocean at the time of engine ignition, so we couldn't quite see. Plus, we were in the day, and KSC was in the day, so we didn't see the actual launch. But that was very, very exciting, and the three of us were just cheering, just much like you were, I'm sure. Fast forward to yesterday when we were watching the vehicle do its stair-step maneuver up to our altitude, and Yvonne and I could see, we were looking out the cupola window, we saw it very far away, about 19, 20 kilometers, and then it got brighter and brighter and bigger, and it struck me that that little tiny dot was going to be fixed to a piece of metal that was about 15 meters from where I was standing, so to speak. And then they came up to our same altitude and started coming directly in on the docking axis. And I had the camera out at one particular point, and I cracked open the window to get a picture, and I realized that inside that spacecraft were two of my colleagues and friends, and they're going 17,500 miles an hour, and we're going 17,500 miles an hour, and we are bringing these two vehicles together with a computer and them backing it up, and I could monitor this process on the telemetry. And so from a technical nature, I was pretty amazed at the whole thing, just realizing what was happening. But then you fold into that the historic aspect of the whole day, and what it means to America, what it means to our nation's space program, what it means to international cooperation and commercial cooperation. It just was kind of awe-inspiring, to be honest with you. And then that was a fleeting moment back to the operations, but it was pretty impressive day, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
As far as the docking was concerned, Dragon flew pretty similar to Shuttle. It had very similar characteristics. The automation would have did make the same corrections that I think either Bob or I would have as we were coming in. And the thing that really stood out to both of us, and we mentioned it as soon as we docked, is we didn't feel the docking. It was just so smooth, and then we were docked, which in Shuttle you felt a little bit of a jolt, nothing real heavy, but you felt it. And we asked the guys on board station the same question, and they said we didn't feel it either, which is typical, more typical. But anyway, that really, really surprised me. So that either just the velocities or the strength of the docking mechanism really absorbed any inertia as we came into dock, and it was pretty neat that we couldn't feel anything at all on board Endeavour.
I think for both Doug and I, we'd have to give the suits a 5-star rating. You know, each suit is point designed for a very specific mission. This one is point designed for us to sit in our seats and protect us if there's a fire or any sort of a problem with the atmosphere on board Dragon. It's leaking out or has smoke in it or anything like that. And so these suits didn't have to do that job for us, which was nice. But it was clear that they were ready. We had great checks of the suits as we continued uphill and pre-launch, and I just can't say enough about the SpaceX team, Chris Trigg, Eric, Maria, and all the other members of that team have just done an outstanding job supporting us, getting them tailor fit to fit on us, and we look forward to seeing how they perform.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
And that concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station. Thank you to all participants from JSC PAO and the media. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.